Okay, awesome. Well, hey everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for our webinar today. This is Choose Your Own Adventure, 3 Roads to Exceptional Asset Management. We're going to give folks another 30 seconds or so to sign in, but in the meanwhile, thought we could introduce ourselves. So I'll get us started. I'm Rachel Zolotarksy, but I go by Zolo. I'm a product manager at Rheaply, focused on understanding what you need to manage your assets, translating that back to our development team, and then back to our customers on the platform.
Yes, and my name is Lily MacLean. I'm a senior solutions engineer. So I connect organizations to our product and technology by doing things like this, giving demos and having a lot of conversations with organizations interested in implementing our technology at their business. Excited to have this conversation today.
Cool. So thanks, Lily. Couple of housekeeping items before we get started. One is that today's webinar is a quick 30-minute product demo. So we'll share a few slides of content, but try and spend most of our time showcasing the actual platform in that demo. Two, if you could please submit your questions in the Q&A module in Zoom, and we'll make sure to save some time at the end to respond to any that come through. And then finally, three, your microphone is going to be muted throughout the session today, but we do have the Zoom chat enabled. So if you've got something you'd really like to share, or again, if you want to ask a question, you can either use the chat or use the Q&A module for your questions. With that being said, we'll go ahead and jump in, and any latecomers can catch the first bit in the recording. So we're going to cover a lot of ground in the webinar. I'll kick things off with a quick intro about Rheaply, about our platform, and then hand it over to Lily so she can do that demo and show how we help customers achieve their goals with our technology. Throughout the demo, I will jump in and provide a couple of real life examples from our customers so you can see how the product works in real life. And then, of course, we'll save those 5 minutes or so at the end for your questions. Go for it, Lily. Okay, cool. So we'll do some road metaphors. It's worth noting up front that what we're going to be talking about today is exciting and uncharted territory for most companies right now. When I talk to customers, they're almost always starting from a place where they're either bogged down by manual processes or messy spreadsheets, endless email chains of communication, and tons of blind spots, as well as silos when it comes to what furniture, fixtures, equipment, and other workplace resources they actually have, where all that stuff actually is, who, if anyone, is using it, how to get rid of it responsibly, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe some of that resonates with you, and that's why you're here today, because those conditions do make it really hard to get the most out of your assets. You end up wasting a lot of money on storage or on disposal fees or on procuring things that you might not actually need. And so while there might be a lot to do there, the really exciting thing is that you do get to choose your own adventure when you use the Rheaply platform. There's no wrong place or road to start your journey on, and there's no wrong way to merge the roads together as your program gets more advanced. So without further ado, let's talk about these roads here. So first up on the know what you have road, our visibility solution really paves the way for digitizing all of your assets onto one single platform. So you can track and manage what matters most with plenty of data captured throughout the life cycle of your stuff. So you can make better, smarter, and quicker decisions. Secondly, on the use what you have road, our Circulate solution creates an internal marketplace for your employees to browse and exchange available items, whether that be specific teams, specific people, or everyone at the company. And so when you make Circulate that first step in your procurement process, you'll actually cut wasteful spending and save money on storage by sharing those resources quickly amongst your organization. And lastly, we have the sell or donate the rest road. Our Next Life solution is what we call that. It's our powerful combination of technology, like the ones I just mentioned a few seconds ago, and services that extend the life of your assets through sales and donation matchmaking, which we can achieve through our marketplace, thanks to our vibrant network of over 3,000 verified businesses and nonprofits. And it's also worth mentioning that we can curate private sharing groups for your stuff with specific organizations if that's something that you need. So that's the 3 roads. That's the Rheaply platform at a high level. Our products and services can be standalone or they can be merged together depending on what you need. And now that you're equipped with that context, I'll pass the mic to Lily.
Yes, thank you, Zolo. And we're going to bring that to life in a demo. And we're also going to talk about some real life customer success stories through our product. So, this first path that we're going to talk about is that know what you have path. We call this our visibility tool. And this is really that tracking and managing what means most to you about your inventory and your assets. So, our product is designed to be incredibly compatible and easy with any existing tools or processes that you might have. Typically, what we see is people managing a lot of their stuff in spreadsheets. We can import that data directly into our tool and get a bunch of resources into the tool at once. If you don't have any of that data, that's also okay. We can generate new data about your resources. Some of the things that we track when we say track what matters to you are things like, first of all, what is this resource? But also what does a picture of this resource look? We can use things like AI to generate the category, description, and dimensional fields of that resource. We also capture things like financial information. So what is the warranty of this chair? What are the types of uses that we can put this chair into? And then what are some of the dimensional pieces that might help us with design standards? So does this desk fit in this space? Does this chair fit in design-wise with the space? Once your resources are digitized, that's when you really have the power of the tool. So you have the ability to see all of your resources. You can filter and track things down by specification. So you can say, what do I have by specific region, or what do I have by specific location at my organization? And maybe what do I have in a specific category, like a furniture category or a lab category? And then we can even filter it down more to things like condition as well as the status. So we actually track in each of these assets. You could think of this as a digital twin, right? This is a digital version of the resource in actuality in your portfolio. And as it exists in your portfolio, things change about this resource. So things like the age, things like the location as you move these resources around, things like the condition as these chairs get sat in, they start to wear down, they start to get damaged, and things like the status. So we can denote when resources are available for use in other locations, when resources are reserved for other projects internally, and when resources are actually in use. So all of this is meant to give data to you all and people in positions of decision-making power so that they can make the most out of their resources. So to talk a little bit more about how one of our customers is using this, we'll have Zolo talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Lily. Super helpful to see it. So as Lily mentioned, let's put it into perspective. One of our customers is a Fortune 500 tech company, and they're using visibility. And to give some background on the customer, they came to us because they had a lot of idle furniture and assets in a warehouse. And then also they had no visibility on assets in use across their campus. The stuff in the warehouse did get used, but not much, as they couldn't figure out how to connect those items to employees who needed them for projects like refreshes, for example. So they were spending a lot of time going back and forth to the warehouse, to buildings on campus, and wasting a lot of money buying things that they actually already had in storage or available in another building for use. Partnering closely with this customer and their real estate partner, we did successfully digitize more than 1 million assets over the course of a year. As they slowly rolled out the reuse program with targeted test groups that we worked together to identify, they moved 99,000 items at least once and 5,000 items multiple times. And when they added up the time savings, they realized that they actually had spent 600 fewer hours making trips to the warehouse. And that was the power for them of starting with digitizing their assets. But enough about me. Lily, pass it back to you.
Yeah, so that's one of the paths and one of the ways that our customers use our tool. The second path is what we call circulation. So think about this as you have this back of house tool. What Zola was mentioning is you can track your items, you can see these items move, you can put them into their new spots. We also connect this, or we don't have to, right? Pick your own path to our circulation tool, which allows a more curated access for users internally to be able to claim what meets their needs. So I, as a designer, for example, can shop from available inventory in my portfolio to reuse. This could be surplus materials. It could also be not surplus materials. It just allows for the smooth and convenient exchange of these materials. So I can come in and I can search for specific items. I'm really interested in chairs as a designer. How does this what type of inventory do we have in our portfolio that can meet my needs? Maybe I'm interested in something a little bit broader. I don't really care if it's chairs. I just want to see what type of furniture we have in our portfolio. So I have a full shopping experience of the tool and a limited access to what is made available for me. So what typically what we see is warehouse managers, asset managers, um, project managers managing a portfolio, and then internal users, designers, other users coming and claiming things on a limited basis. So once I find something that's interesting to me, potentially it meets my interests, maybe it's close to me geographically, but ultimately we're designing and we're procuring with reuse in mind. So I can come into this item, I can see how many are available, the condition, all of those details that are important for me to make decisions on the reuse of this item. Maybe it has some attachments that I need to know about this resource. And I can come in and I can do a couple of things. One thing that we see is scaling this. So yes, it's great that I can come in and make an offer for 10 of these chairs, but ultimately, as I'm internally reusing these assets, I really want to scale this. So I can come in and I can add this to my cart and then I can continue shopping. Or I can add this to my project. So I can come in here and I can say, maybe we have a refresh project within our organization and we actually need, 20 of these or 100 of these. And I'm going to add it to this project. And that way, others can collaborate with me on the design that we might need for this project. So I could add Zolo to this project and we can look at this refresh we're doing and what we are trying to procure internally first before buying new. But either way, we come in and we can make an offer for the quantity that's available. So ultimately, this idea of exchange, we're actually building a marketplace, we're building an exchange platform that allows resources to move from one user or one department or one team to another user, another department, another team. I come in here, I make that offer. The system is going to manage our notifications, it's going to manage our messaging, and it's going to create a digital receipt of this transaction. So how has this benefited some of our customers? I'll let Zolo talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Lily. So this example is that Lily had mentioned you can either do circulate on its own, or you can pair it with visibility. This example is a customer that is just using circulate only. They are a major public research university, and their focus of using Rheaply was to increase material reuse of lab consumables and equipment in the research department. And so they were trying to solve a couple key problems. They wanted to reduce over purchasing, to make internal sharing and reuse possible, and then also to replace emails and phone calls as their only way for procuring lab resources. And so they, as I mentioned, chose to only go with circulate, not visibility. And in that first week on the platform, they ended up saving thousands of dollars by simply reusing what they already had. In 14 days, they had recouped over $30,000 in cost savings. And after their first 4 months, they had saved $113,000 while also keeping over 2,000 pounds out of the landfill. And so actually in those first 4 months, they hit their annual Rheaply goal, which was really, really exciting. And so as you can see from the stats on this page, by the time that they got to 7 months of using Rheaply's platform, they had saved over $130,000 and kept 2,300 pounds out of the landfill. And I love this example because it does really show the compounding effects of reuse and the kind of results an internal marketplace that's easy to use can yield. And that's just one example of an organization that's done really well with that. So back to you, Lily, for that third road.
Yeah, awesome. And it's also a good example of how many different types of assets can end up in our platform. We're showing today and we see a lot of FF&E, but the example that you just mentioned, Zolo, also includes things like lab consumables, lab equipment. And we've worked with assets that range from very workplace furniture type assets all the way to more interesting type assets, built-in environment type assets. So it is really asset agnostic and surplus exists in every pocket. So really good example. So our last path is really, if we think about our visibility tool as that let's manage this inventory. Let's get the data and the details that we need about it. And then let's share this with other teams and departments and internal users that can use these so that we don't double procure, so that we avoid having to buy new. That last path is really what happens when our organization no longer needs these resources. And a lot of companies come to us with that specific question. We have a warehouse, we have a storage space, and how do I clear that out in a sustainable way? So the really cool thing about our tool is you have the choice as the organization to choose who sees what with these resources. So ultimately, I can come in and say, hey, actually, these resources are no longer needed by me and by my internal teams, and I want to share it with a different sharing group. So right now it's shared with my organization only, meaning users internal to the organization are going to have visibility and access to those resources. I can now open it up to what we call a preferred network. This is a network of partners preferred by your organization to be able to donate or sell items to. So simply with a click of a button, I can push these resources to an external group of users. Now, really what we see happening with these is we see two things. We see sales and we see donations. When there are time constraints and time crunches, donating items is a really good option because it impacts communities and they're able to shop from what's available to them in the same way that I shopped as an internal user, just that I am only seeing what's available to me. But we also have the opportunity to sell items. So actually, let's take this Herman Miller chair. If I come in here as an admin or as the listing manager, I can actually say, hey, you know what? I'm going to push this to our external network, and I'm also going to list it for a price. So I can come in here and I can say, I actually want to sell this item now, and I'm going to push this to that external marketplace. And now users that are part of my network can access this chair and make a offer for the chair for a price that it is listed at. So our platform fully supports payments. Our platform also supports free donations. In both instances, again, those partners are going to have the same shopping experience, only their view of the platform is just what's available for them as a connected partner to our enterprise or other clients. So they come in here, they see what's available, and they make an offer for what's available. Once that happens and those offers are accepted, whether it's for a price or whether it's for donation, you're still going to get that digital receipt. You're still going to get a view of where those items went. And ultimately, every transaction also filters into our reporting. So we really want to make sure that our organizations have a good thumb on the impact that they're making through the use of any of these tools. And so we capture things like weight diverted from landfill over time. How much are we diverting from landfill in aggregate over time because we're using this product? Or also from a sustainability lens, because we're using this product, because we're reusing what we already have, we don't have to manufacture new items, and therefore we're protecting the environment from an estimated amount of embodied carbon. And one of the last reports that we provide is on the value available and recaptured. So if I were to look at this over time, I can get an understanding of how much value do we have in underutilized or surplus resources? And then as we're reusing or potentially donating or selling those assets externally, how much are we recapturing into the organization or avoiding a certain amount of cost because we don't have to procure new? How much are we donating into our local communities, or how much are we actually receiving in sales back from these transactions? So that is that last path, and Zolo can talk a little bit about what we've seen from impact on that path.
Yeah, thanks, Lily. So there's two examples here. One is on the sell side and the other is on the donating side, which are the two main sustainable disposition paths that we work with, as Lily mentioned. So on the sell side, we did work with a Fortune 500 energy and utilities company who was shutting down a power plant, and they wanted to recover investment value in the process. And although we do typically work with furniture assets, as Lily mentioned, this was a case where it wasn't the typical furniture and office equipment we were known for. We were actually working to help find buyers for heavy machinery to the tune of a little over $185,000 in recovered value, and it also diverted 133,000 pounds from the landfill. And so in this case, they were able to make money back for an asset they would have otherwise had to donate or pay to dispose of. And maybe most importantly, as you can see in the quote here, we also made their life easier for both the buyers and the internal partners because we were really hands-on throughout the whole process, really from beginning to end. On the donation side, we have another technology company. They had a warehouse full of surplus items that they no longer needed, and they wanted to find donation recipients for these items, but they didn't have the bandwidth to coordinate those donations, nor did they have a network of donation partners already established. So in just 2 months' time, our team activated our network of nonprofits that we mentioned earlier in the call, and they identified 22 vetted and approved partners to take the items. We were able to move 100% of the surplus items in the warehouse, and that represented just over $318,000 in donation value, which is crazy, and diverted 18,000 pounds from the landfill, which was really exciting. And so what's even better is that these donations also made an enormous difference to nonprofits that received them. We actually got a quote back from one of our donation partners that said, "Thank you for thinking of us with this donation effort. Being able to receive items like these is literally life-changing for our members and community partners." And so it's a really cool example of how choosing a next life for your assets with Rheaply doesn't have to involve the landfill is good for your business, and it can have a life-changing impact on your community. And so we're really excited to be here and help make that happen on this last road. So with that, that's my last story. So I think we have some time for Q&A. If y'all have any questions for us, we're happy to answer. Okay, cool. I actually think I see a question here, so I will ask it, and then I think Lily is a good one for you to answer. So someone's asking us here, what if the organization has really strict policies on donations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the way that groups are set up in the Rheaply tool is meant to be a curated group to the organizations that we work with. We call them sharing groups, but it's basically what you can think of as the networks that you send assets to. So ultimately, organizations that we work with are have full autonomy and full ability to tell us as Rheaply who should or should not be a part of their sharing groups. So when we set these up, typically what we hear is a business rule type list of organizations that should not be included. For example, when we work with organizations that donate a lot of materials, they might have requirements about it needs to be a registered 501(c)(3). They cannot be religiously affiliated. They cannot have political affiliation, and they cannot be biased in any sort of way. So if those are the requirements, the Rheaply team, and we have an entire sustainability team who sources these types of organizations in your unique area, goes out and looks for partners that fit that criteria. So if you have really strict policies or really strict requirements for that, we work with those types of organizations all the time, and we're very thorough with how they get into the sharing group, in addition to documentation that they might need to fill out, such as collecting COI agreements and helping coordinate in terms of their needs for logistics, the trucking operations, all that good stuff. So we do this on a very frequent basis, and the technology is built to handle that.
Perfect. Thanks, Lily. There's actually another question that Amy just asked in the chat here. So she's wondering, how is payment and transfer handled? And we did not go over it yet, so it's a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. So our platform is integrated with Stripe Technologies, and Stripe handles the processing of the payment. So what actually happens is Rheaply is set up as a vendor to your organization. And because of that, it's actually, from the organizations that we work with, a big value add, because you don't have to add let's say you have 15 buyers, instead of adding all 15 buyers to your payment system, it's just Rheaply. So Rheaply collects the payment and then remits that back to you on a monthly basis or whatever we determine in the contract. So we integrate with Stripe. The payment is handled in platform. It's processed in platform. Buyers can pay for it with ACH or credit card. So ultimately, that all processing happens on the platform, and then the payment amounts are remitted back to the company on a monthly basis. Great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Any other questions or any follow-ups? Cool. Lily, any last thoughts to add here?
Maybe one thing that we didn't talk about fully is, and we're happy to continue any sort of specific conversations if anyone has any use cases that they want to chat about, is permissioning and access. So one thing that's really important to a lot of the customers that we work with is having guided access or guided permissions based on your role at the organization. So we have a plethora of permissions that allow various user activities in the platform. So for example, admins versus someone who just posts items, or potentially someone who just receives and is looking for items. But we also have ways to associate people with a team. So, if I'm a part of a certain department and I have maybe a little bit more ability to post assets than someone else, we can associate people with a team as well. So we have a lot of checks and balances. We can have approval workflows. There's a lot of flexibility in our tool to meet your business needs. And I think it's just important to call out that there's a lot of flexibility within that, because each of the organizations we work with have some pretty, they have an idea of how and who they want to involve in the program.
Mm-hmm. And then we just got another question rolled in. So is it for the marketplace purchases? Is it all local? And then the buyer and seller schedule their own pickup of assets.
I would say it's 96 or 7% local. Our preference is local to keep emissions down from the transportation of the asset. We do have a couple of use cases where it does make sense to actually ship the item, but most of the customers that we work with prefer local pickup. And in that case, there's a couple of options. So what we see a lot is, yes, the buyers or the donation partners are responsible for picking up the item. In 99% of the use cases that we work with, the recipient is in charge of going to get the item. But there are some ways that we can make this easier in the product. So for example, we see this happening in the description and the details, hey, we typically do donation days on a certain day, or, this is the maybe some additional requirements that you must meet. And we also take a very hands-on approach to any sort of buyer or donation efforts, and we help those recipient partners meet the criteria of the business. So every single one of our businesses that we work with is different, and they have different requirements. So we make sure that those partners are aware of and are meeting those requirements in terms of the COI, the specified dates of collection, what the preference is, any sort of additional details that they might need to have to be on site to claim those items. But that all happens with our support, and through the product, they're able to message and get additional details through the listing.
Yeah, so just to add to that too, it's maybe a little tough to tell here, but you can also set your location. So right now, Lily's is set for everywhere, but you can set it to your geographic location at a radius. And so then you can see what's in your local network, and you can see what's farther out as well. But with services and with our support, we help facilitate and support the scheduling and pickup, but there's not necessarily like a shipping product built into the Rheaply platform.
Awesome.
Great. Well, I think that wraps us up.
Cool.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much for joining and asking great questions. We really loved having you here, and I know Lily would be happy to walk you through some of the finer details. Should you have additional questions, you know where to find us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.